All right, take two. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 5. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show, what to do after waivers clear about like midnight or like 4 o'clock in the morning, whichever is your poison. When it comes down to that, this is a very deep week, not just from the proactive waiver wires, guys like Jalen Polk, other guys out there, like from a reactive perspective, like Don Tyvian and Wicks. This is a deep week. This is probably like the league winning week, I'm going to guess, when it comes to fantasy football, to get this right with the proactive and the reactive wire when it comes down to everything that's going on this one. So I got off the phone with one of my co-managers before I went live, as he's panicking on a 1-3 team. A lot of really ugly trades being thrown about there. Like, know what guys are worth. If a guy's an RB2, it doesn't matter like how good he's doing for you. You should treat him like an RB2 when it comes to that deal. Certain guys like your Devin A. Chains that would theoretically not be tradable from a fantasy football perspective. It's all about that guy's ability to put a certain amount more points on my scorecard than my opponent. Again, I hate to break it to people, like, everybody's tradable. No, there are certain guys that are not tradable, like your Barclays, because like, how do I replace that amount? Like, you're not going to give me 2 guys back that are, have those legendary or elite type seasons under their belt. Those are the guys that win leagues. Like, back when fantasy football like first like really started, you had the 101, you got LT, you won your league. That's how easy it is. So if you have some of these guys, like, understand what you have. If guys come looking around, and we're looking at certain guys like your Drake London, yeah, like he's still got league winner on him when we start breaking these guys down this week. So coming into week 6, there's a lot of buys going on. Week 5 buys, I can bring this up: Lions, Titans, Eagles, Chargers. Week 6 buys, you're looking at the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. So plan accordingly on that one. Week 6 defenses that look good to roll, you're looking at the Bears. They're going to be going up against Jacksonville. They're really bad right now. The Colts and the Titans, and again, this is going to be based off who the quarterbacks are. Probably the Titans regardless. Like Will Levis, definitely. Even if the Colts are a bad defense. When it comes to the Colts, Anthony Richardson, turnover machine. Yeah, I'd probably be rolling the Titans at that point, going out there. Texans are another one if they're available, getting ready for the Patriots. Eagles are going to be rolling against Cleveland with Deshaun Watson. Ravens probably not going to be available, but this is part of the thing with this channel. Being proactive means that like I can hold an extra guy in my on my bench, because I'm not going to be carrying 2 defenses into next week. I'm going to need that spot next week to maybe plan ahead. But like when it looks to the Ravens, I'm probably going to be a pretty good roll against Jaden Daniels. Even though Jaden Daniels looks really good, like I can be rolling the Ravens out against the rookie quarterback in that one. Steelers against the Raiders. Raiders are an absolute train wreck going on with that. Going on from that into the news and the notes. First things first, as I've been talking about some of this stuff. So George Kittle, he pops up with ribs right now. And this is a little interesting because the other thing we have to talk about is Kyle Juszczyk is day-to-day with a shoulder for whatever that works. Kyle Juszczyk is also the reason why like Jordan Mason is still going to be a volume-based RB2 when it comes down to this. With Kyle Juszczyk's injury, I don't know if this is going to upgrade Jordan Mason or if this is necessarily going to downgrade the entire offense when it comes down to that. Like that work overall, you're looking at Debo doing 76% snaps. Ayuk is still hung over at 79% snaps. Jennings was at 57% snaps. Ricky Pearsall, there's still no decision on him. And the 49ers don't run 3 wide receivers. Those targets, like depending on what goes on, are going to have to go someplace. And right now, like if you spent on Jennings, he may be a roll next week based off Kittle and Juszczyk going forward in this one. Also could upgrade Jordan Mason. Now, the other news when it comes to the 49ers is supposedly CMC is dealing with bilateral Achilles tendonitis. What does that mean? He's a long way off. Like if it's in both legs, one may be worse because he overcompensated on one leg. And the Niners knew about all this stuff going into the season. All right, Bears don't have a lot to say about like the script overall. Like I don't know how many people were expecting that DeAndre Swift was actually going to be good at football. 63% snaps, 16 for 93 a tug, 7 for 7 for 72, a red zone carry. Khalil Herbert, remember coaches lie. He was supposed to be the red zone guy, zero usage. Roshan, 37% snaps, 2 red zone carries in this one. He tugged. So maybe the only value that Roshan's going to really have is as a desperation RB2 or as a cuff. Like the hope that you were going to get like the full usage flop didn't happen the way it did. I don't have a lot to say about anybody else when it comes to the Bears, to make this a little bit fast. Bengals, a lot of news on the Bengals this week when it comes to their running back situation. So Zach Moss was at 60% snaps, 15 for 51, 4 for 4 for 27, and a tug. That was a red zone target. Chase Brown, on the other hand, I can bring him up. If he's available, this could be the dreaded hot hand. 40% snaps, 15 for 80, 2 touchdowns, 3 for 2 for 4 in this one. He had 3 red zone carries, and he cashed 2 of those, or 3 red zone carries, 2 red zone targets. He cashed 2 of those in. So, yeah, if he's available, he's back to potentially being standalone value. I don't know if I would necessarily say that he's going to take over the backfield, but I would be concerned if I'm the Moss owner that this is going to be some type of timeshare going forward. All right. T. Higgins was down to 64% snaps in his second game back. 10 targets, though. He led everybody. Yosivas was consistent at 67% snaps. He's still a wide receiver 3. Mike Gesicki, he was down to 33% snaps in this one. 1 target, broken play, -9. Now, from last year, when it comes to the Bengals, their tight ends are very difficult to track because they tend to use them in odd packages. Everybody gets out there. Tanner Hudson was a healthy scratch. Tanner McLaughlin was a healthy scratch to go along with this. Drew Sample was at 57% snaps. He's the blocking tight end. Remember when we talked about like Eric All thinking about stashing? 60% snaps, 4 for 4 for 28. Now, probably only deeper leagues in Dynasty that I'd be worried about this, because right now we know the number 1, number 2, and number 3 wide receivers when it comes to the Bengals. They're probably always going to be the number 1, number 2, number 3, and target earners in this offense. Remember, Yosivas is going to get red zone targets in this one. So, like, how deep is your league when it comes to stashing this? But 60% snaps, 4 for 4 for 28. Just being on the field 60% of the time, he's going to have a certain amount of fantasy viability. The question becomes if that snap share gets up a little bit higher and you get a 4 for 4 as some type of floor. Yeah, now you're going to be talking about like theoretically getting the tight end attached to Joe Burrow when it comes down to that one. All right. Oh, and the last thing, Jermaine Burton was at 6% snaps, so I don't care. Probably not going to be tracking a lot of that with the time being going forward. All right, Bills. So James Cook, he's an RB2. You should know what you have. Between Ty Johnson, and in this one, Ty Johnson had 19% snaps. He had a red zone carry that he tugged on. I want to make sure that this is not from last week's notes. There it is. And then Ray Davis, 17% snaps. Very inefficient, 7 for 11. Remember, this was a blowout. They got blown out by the Ravens in this one. Khalil Shakur, 59% snaps, 5 for 4 for 62. Keon Coleman was at 73% snaps, 4 for 3 for 51. Matt Collins, 61% snaps, 6 targets. If that's what the number 1, number 2 or wide receivers are going to be for the Bills, Matt Collins is going to have a certain amount of non-predictive spike weeks at this point. Like, I don't know when it's going to happen. Curtis Samuel was at 37% snaps. MVS was at 42% snaps. Dalton Kincaid, like, he's tight end 7. You paid for it, and he's returning on what you paid for. Probably not going to be a unicorn. Very limited amount of guys that are going to have that ability that are going to be left this year. Travis Kelce pops back up, but again, tight end 7, 63% snaps, 7 for 5 for 47. Dawson Knox, 46% snaps, 1 target in this game. All right, Broncos. Not a lot to say. Bo Nix, if you stashed him, you stashed him. This was like not a good matchup when it comes to the Jets. I wouldn't have been rolling him out there. I would not have been expecting anything else. He played the role of game manager and they won. So from a real world perspective, he did what he needed to be done. Now, Tyler Beatty, the running back, he did get the start, like basically the start from what I saw. They got knocked out with the back in this one. And then Javonte Williams, still very ugly, 57% snaps, 16 for 77, 3 for 2 for 3 in this game. Now, if you're wondering about chasing these guys down the line, Jaleel McLaughlin was still at 34% snaps, 9 for 46 in this game, 1 for 1 receiving. He had the red zone target, he had the red zone carry compared to Devontae Williams in this game. All right, and then no news on Audric Estime coming back from IR at this point, if you're worried about that. Cortland Sutton is going to be a buy in this offense. 74% snaps, 9 for 3 for 60. 149 air yards, and he got the 2 red zone targets. So that's all we need to know about that one. The other one to be paying attention to with all these guys is going to be Troy Franklin. He's up to 31% snaps, 4 for 2 for -2, but he had 62 air yards in this one. I don't care about the tight ends for the Broncos. All right, Browns. I have to apologize to Deshaun Watson in this one. I did see his pick hit the receiver in the chest, and it got popped up in the air. So it wasn't his fault, but I probably don't care outside of that. Now, when it comes to the running back situation, Jerome Ford, know what you got, know what's coming. 78% snaps, 10 for 58, 7 for 7 for 27 in this game. But, and here are your 2 butts when it comes to Jerome Ford, if you're wondering. He did get a red zone carry, but Devontae Foreman did get 2 himself in this game to go along with this. And I want to double check this on his 22% snaps. The other thing is Nick Chubb's practice window was open coming off of the pup right there 14 hours ago. What's that mean? Well, I imagine that the red zone opportunities will go to Nick Chubb because he's really good at football. So Jerome Ford, not a good offense, not going to get the red zone opportunity. Nick Chubb's coming back, like you do you when it comes to that one. Amari Cooper, 93% snaps, 8 targets. Jerry Jeudy, sneakily, if you're wondering, like deeper leagues, 9 targets in this one, 72 yards to go along with this one. David Njoku, he got a Friday limited in. I'm going to imagine that he's back this week when it comes down to that. Last thing I looked at, like no news on this one when it comes down to that. All right, moving on to the Buccaneers. Not a lot to say on this one. They blew out the Eagles in this one. That's the wrong one. I didn't want that. There we go. And Baker Mayfield. So they blew out the Eagles, like 2 passing touchdowns to go along with 347 and another rushing touchdown. So again, like sometimes like, you just have to go after the hot hand when it comes down to that. Not a lot to say about the receivers other than Jalen McMillan was out with a hamstring. Trey Palmer was knocked out with a concussion. That means like Cade Otton is going to be jumping all the way up there into streamability again, like 95% snaps, 9 for 6 for 52. He's going to be the number 3 in this offense. Looks like on Thursday night against Atlanta. When it comes to the running back situation, if you're wondering about this, remember, first and foremost, this was a blowout. So the Bucky Irving usage is maybe a little bit skewed when it comes down to this. Rachaad White, 58% snaps, 10 for 49, 3 for 2 for 35. Now, when it comes to Bucky Irving in this one, if you're wondering, 42% snaps, 10 for 49, a touchdown, 2 for 1 for 6 in the passing game. But, and here's the but, all 5 red zone carries and the touchdown went to Bucky Irving. So these are entirely different monsters now. Rachaad White is probably going to be the receiving floor back, and Bucky Irving is going to be the red zone fall in the end zone RB2 going forward in the season. This was such a blowout that the 3rd string running back, Sean Tucker, got 8% snaps, and he got 2 opportunities to go along with it, if you're wondering about that stuff. All right, moving on to the Cardinals. What I will say about the blowout for the Cardinals is, like Kyler Murray is probably not going to be like quarterback 1. So like you may want to be looking around and for your league winner when it comes down to that. Some of these guys are not going to be bad. It just means like if you're expecting that guy to be able to win you a league, he might not be able to do it. James Conner in the blowout, 58% snaps, 18 for 104, 1 for 1 for 9, but 9 red zone carries. So again, that's how valuable he is, even as an RB2 when they get down there and they give him the football. Trey Benson, if you're tracking this stuff in the blowout, he was efficient. So if you're wondering about that, 9 for 50 in this one, but, and here's your but, he's capped out as an RB2, even if he gets the boat. Emari Demercado in the game, this is a blowout, 24% snaps, 5 total opportunities to go along with it. So I'd imagine even if Connor goes down, Demercado's still not going away. Michael Wilson, he's going to stay the guy if you're going to be chasing in deeper leagues attached to this offense. He didn't quite get it done in this one. 85% snaps, 7 for 3 for 38, fumble lost, but 83 air yards. More air yards than Marvin Harrison in this game. Greg Dortch didn't get it done, 73% snaps, 4 for 4 for 38. Tip Freeman wasn't the guy. It was Higgins at 68% snaps, but I don't care about the tight ends not named Trey McBride. All right, Chargers. Weird game script in this one. They jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and then the Chiefs came back, scored 17 unanswered, and won the game. In this one, J.K. Dobbins, 71% snaps to Gus Edwards, 25% snaps. So there you go on that one. Quentin Johnston, 77% snaps, 85 air yards on 5 targets. So like that's going to keep him in wide receiver 3 land. Ladd McConkey is the wide receiver 1, 77% snaps, 7 for 5 for 67 and a tug. Only 45 air yards. Did have the red zone target. The other red zone target did not go to Quentin Johnson. It went to Josh Palmer back at 79% snaps. All right. And then with the 3 of these guys back, Fukoku and Darius Davis weren't issues. So like those are the guys I don't care about the Chargers tight end. The Chiefs, no comment. Remember, some of the offense that we thought were going to be good are going to be bad. Carson Steele, he started the game. He fumbled on the opening drive. He saw 18% snaps total in the game. Why I bring this up after bringing this up on after waivers is unless they cut him or he's inactive, I imagine that he's not entirely going to go away from the offense going forward. So Samaje Perine, 40% snaps. He's supposed to be the passing down back, no passing work, 5 for 14. He did get the touchdown in this one to go along with 1 red zone carry that he cashed in. Now, Kareem Hunt on the 45% snaps that he did, 14 for 69, 3 for 2 in this game. He also got 1 red zone carry and 1 red zone target. So yeah, not going to be without value, but speculating that you're going to get anything more than RB2. I did say this with Steele that like it was going to be his job to lose. It looks like he lost it. But again, like this may be the most dreaded of all things, the running back by committee, because it does look like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be returning to practice 21 hours ago. So again, this could be 4 guys and then trying to figure out what the usage is. I don't even know I would be going. If I were going to be at tracking Kareem Hunt at this point, it would be like a low bid, hoping that no one else goes after him because they don't know what to bid on. And I've got guys that way. Rashee Rice, there's still no news on that. I will say when I tore my ACL, that like I knew it. And the MRI that they're looking at is generally looking for blood in the knee joint because you can't see the torn ACL, but the instability is usually there. So like it's really, really odd that they don't know at this point. I have heard stories about like ACL sprains that they open them up, they thinking it's torn, but it's just like hanging on by a thread, and they still have to go in and tighten it up, and it's still like a year out. So if you're wondering all that stuff, Xavier Worthy would be the guy to speculate on. I don't think he's going to be available in most leagues, but if he is, like he was the guy at 73% snaps, 4 for 3 for 73 and a touchdown. Justin Watson, he's going to jump back up there into wide receiver 3 land. He was at 69% snaps in this one. Juju, 52% snaps. Sky Moore, 21% snaps. Travis Kelce jumps back up to being a unicorn because of the injury. 87% snaps, 9 for 7 for 89 in this one. All right, Colts. Anthony Richardson is going to be day-to-day with quote-unquote oblique and abdominal strains, whatever that means. Joe Flacco is going to be the guy that you want it to roll the toys out. Bring this one up right now because Anthony Richardson makes the offense not good. Jonathan Taylor with the quote-unquote dreaded high ankle sprain on this one. It says that they're not considering putting him on injury reserve. I would not be trusting Trey Sermon outside of desperation in this case. Tyler Goodson is probably going to get the receiving work in this one. I imagine that Evan Hull, if you're going to get sneaky going into next week, is the guy to stash on the bottom of your bench for free because there will be people that are probably dropping healthy amount on Trey Sermon. I don't necessarily, it's not even about if he's good at football or not. I just don't know if he's going to get the usage, and I don't know who the quarterback is going to be to speculate on that. When it comes to the wide receivers with Joe Flacco, and I did bench my Michael Pittman shares, and my co-manager was like, yeah, how were we to know that the good quarterback was going to get put in the game? So Michael Pittman, 88% snaps, 9 for 6 for 113, 116 air yards. Alec Pierce was down to 83% snaps. Josh Downs was at 62% snaps, 9 for 8 for 82 in a tug in this one. So probably not a guy that I would be spending on until I know who the quarterback situation is when it comes to Downs. Because he could theoretically be a wide receiver 2, even though that's a low snap share with Joe Flacco. If it's Anthony Richardson, I don't even know if any of these guys are worth rolling out at that point. Adonai Mitchell was down to 20% snaps. I don't care about your the Colts tight ends. All right, Redskins. Jane Daniel, league winner. We're going to move on from that. Remember, this was a blowout. So B-Rob, 63% snaps, 21 for 103 and a tug, 3 for 3 for 12. Probably would have been higher if they would have been in the game more. Austin Eckler was out with a concussion. McNichols, 38% snaps, 6 for 68, 2 touchdowns, 1 for 1 for 6. 8th year guy, I'm probably not interested. One of them came early, one of them came late. When it comes to Scary Terry, I did put a trade offer out on that, and I got laughed at. So that should be a pretty good indication that everyone is in on the joke at this point. 71% snaps, likely down because of the game script. 103 air yards and another red zone touchdown. So again, like, one of the things that you could look at with Scary Terry saying like he wasn't going to get red zone work, where he's getting red zone work. Luke McCaffrey was at 44% snaps, 1 for 1 for 17. De'Ami Brown, 25% snaps. Zach or whatever, Odamine, that guy, 25% snaps, 6 for 6 for 85. So I'm not interested because that's ridiculous efficiency on low snaps. Noah Brown was up to 67% snaps, 4 for 3 for 26. Deeper leagues, if I'm speculating on him, Zach Ertz, 68% snaps, 4 for 4 for 22. Ben Sinnott, consistent at 42% snaps, still no opportunities. When it comes to the Cowboys, Zeke was down to 18% snaps in this game. Bring him up right here. If you're interested in all that, Rico Dowdle, 45% snaps, 11 for 46, 1 for 1 for 15 in a receiving touchdown. And again, outside of some like lower end RB2s, I don't know how much I really would want to be chasing that with the fullback Hunter Lupke or whatever, 52% snaps, 2 for 8, 2 for 2 for 14. Like, that's how much they trust Rico Dowdle in some of those situations when it comes down to it. He did have the red zone carry and the red zone target in this game, if you're wondering about that. So he still has value. He should be rolled out on a week-to-week basis, extremely capped out at this point. If you want to be taking your gambles on theoretically getting the full load, it would still be Dalvin Cook if they trust him to stay in on those passing downs. If we're tracking on the old metrics, 82% snaps for Brandon Cook, 70% snaps for Brandon Tolbert. So like the wide receiver 2 and 3 do appear to be pretty much wrapped up when it comes to the Cowboys. I don't know how much I'd be tracing those guys. Jake Ferguson back from the knee, 73% snaps, 7 for 7 for 49 in this one, a fumble not lost. So again, short list for unicorns at the end of the year, still intact for Jake Ferguson, and you're in that. Luke Schoonmaker, 34% snaps, if you're wondering. Dolphins. All right, I don't have a lot to say on this one. Tyler Huntley was 14 for 22, 96 passing yards, 8 for 41, and a touchdown, a fumble loss. He probably has more streaming value than he does to upgrade the toys. This is something we already knew. Skylar Thompson was inactive with ribs. Tim Boyle, it's bad. Devin A-Chain, I talked about this. Like, if you get an owner that will sell a guy that could theoretically win leagues, and you can get him for like, again, you're not buying low on these guys. I want to be clear on this from a strategy standpoint. If you can afford to spend a lot of bench capital with the ability to theoretically have a guy that can win a league, I can understand doing that. But I don't know how many owners are going to sell a guy that can win leagues to you for under what would cost to get, a guy that can win leagues. So be advised, if you're going to be sending out trade offers, they got to be like legitimate trade offers. And you're probably looking at sending like something along the line of a solid running back 2 and a solid like wide receiver 2 to at least get the guy to be thinking about Devin A-Chain, because they know they got a league winner if Tua comes back and X, Y, and Z happens. Mostert was out with a chest. Jeff Wilson injured in pregame warmups. So he only did 3% snaps. Jalen Wright was out to 47% snaps. And more importantly on this one, he did have a red zone carry in this one target. So like, now we're getting into not just stash, we're getting into not just cuff land, we're getting into stash land when it comes down to some of this stuff. If I can't go out and I can't buy Devin A-Chain, I'm stashing Jalen Wright going forward with the running back situation and the entire situation for the Dolphins. They're going to get to the point where they're like, let's just see what we got. Don't care about the wide receivers right now. Do what you got to do. Realize that like everybody's going to be coming around like looking to sell low. If you want to get them off your roster, like you take what you can get. Like you're not in a good situation when it comes to any of that. OBJ was not activated. His practice window was opened up. If you're into that type of thing, I don't know what value it's going to have at this point. Open practice window for OBJ. Malik Washington, he was finally active. 23% snaps, 1 for 1 for 8. I don't care about their tight ends. Eagles, they were blown out. 2 caveats to this. Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine. That's not new news to us. Both his starting wide receivers were out, and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. AJ Brown with a hamstring, Devontae Smith with a concussion. I haven't seen any news on either one of these guys, and this is my second take. Hopeful to return after bye week, and Devontae Smith concussion out. And again, they have a bye, so just be advised on that one. Barkley was at 56% snaps with the blowout. Gainwell at 44% snaps. Again, he looks like he's the cuff if you're going to do that thing. I don't know how much I would trust that. Will Shipley was only at 2% snaps. So again, I imagine those two guys are going to split the work if Barkley goes down at this point. Not really a lot to talk about when it comes to the rest of the Eagles. Wide receivers outside of speculation. Dotson was at 86% snaps. Paris Campbell was the 2 at 84% snaps. Johnny Wilson, 56% snaps, 2 targets. He went out with a concussion. That's probably for Dynasty League stuff if you're worried. Goddard was at 63% snaps in the blowout. Again, they probably yanked him. 8 for 7 for 62 in this one. All right, moving on to the Falcons. Remember, they play Thursday in this one. So Bijan, 64% snaps. Right now, we're tracking him to be out with a hamstring. So they did say that they said limited on the estimated practice report today. What's that mean? It's a hamstring. So do what you got to do on that one. If you don't own Algier and he's available, what's a win worth when it comes down to that? He was in at 38% of snaps, 8 for 60, 2 for 2 for 20 in the game. So this is full Bill Cow mode if you get the opportunity to roll out Tyler Algiers in this one. Drake London still tracking to be a league winner. I hate to break it to you. 12 targets, 164 air yards in this one. So those are gonna land at a certain point. It will come together. That's what we're looking at when it comes to that. Theoretically, still gonna have a top 10 finish, and that means that you're getting a return on your investment when it comes to where he was going out in drafts relative to where that goes. Now, Darnell Mooney in this game, he was at 96% snaps, 6 targets, 3 for 56. He did have 121 air yards. It's going to happen when it comes down to that. Ray McLeod is dealing with an ankle. So if you're worried about your Kyle Pitts shares, there's a possibility that he's going to get the opportunities that would have gone to Darnell Mooney at this point down the line. I don't have a lot to say about Kyle Pitts other than 68% snaps, 3 targets. Yeah, whatever. You are buying a speculation. I was buying Kyle Pitts, speculating that I would theoretically be able to get a unicorn. That looks like it's not going to happen. Based off of everything, he's going to be in that tight end 6 to tight end 15 range. I'm going to be going a different direction if I'm looking to win my league. I don't know if he's necessarily droppable at this point. All right, Giants, no comment on Danny Dimes. We will talk about the running back situation because I do generally think that you're still tracking on Tyrone Tracy being a stash. Devin Singletary, 68% snaps, 14 for 24, wasn't efficient, 1 for 1 for 14. Why we didn't see the usage flip when it came to Tyrone Tracy in this game when he was more efficient, at least in the passing game, 1 for 1 for 19, the fumble lost. And remember, with Carson Steele, these guys, the coaches have to trust you. They trust Devin Singletary. They don't trust Tyrone Tracy. When he fumbles, that means that they're not going to really trust you to be on the field, especially when you're doing 4 for 2. So it's still going to happen. He's probably going to be on that very short list of guys that can win leagues. So in deeper leagues, he should be held when it comes down to that thing. Let's see. Malik Neighbors, he's doing concussion work right now. I'll bring him up. I do have his projected overall stat line. 221 targets, 149-ish receptions, 1,640 yards, 13-ish touchdowns. Now, do I think that's going to remain consistent? No, but that's the over-under line that we're looking at when it comes after week 4. So know what you got if someone comes sniffing around, and know what it's going to cost to go out and try and get a guy like him if you think that you can take advantage of the owner. That's the stat line when it comes to that. Wan'Dale Robinson, normally I would advise staying away from guys like this, but if you're going to get a guy that's going to be about 10 targets a game, and he had 2 red zone targets in this one, this is not the same animal of those slot-only guys, even at 65% snaps. He is the beneficiary of that ridiculous projected stat line of Malik Neighbors, and that changes things. Slayton was at 84% snaps. I probably don't care. Theo Johnson, from a Dynasty League standpoint, 71% snaps, only 1 target. Probably not going to be fantasy relevant this year, but he's still hanging on as the tight end 1 there in a bad offense with the theoretical possibility that we could get a quarterback switch. All right, Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, no comment. Not a real football channel. All right. So what's going on with Travis Etienne? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I did hear that may have been a benching. I did hear it may have been a shoulder. Played 2 plays, went out of the game. Tank Bigsby, he looked better on 29% snaps, 7 for 90, 58-yarder. Dearness Johnston, 21% snaps. That's probably the trustworthy work that was going on. I mean, Etienne wasn't bad when he did play. 52% snaps, 11 for 50, 2 for 1 for 10. Offense isn't good. The good news out of all of this is we may get a lot of passing work when it comes to his offense. Christian Kirk is the number one right now. 78% snaps, 12 for 7 for 61, a touchdown, 178 air yards. Brian Thomas, we can still track to be the number 2 with all that upside. 76% snaps, 9 for 6 for 86, 1 touchdown, 132 air yards. Gabe Davis, he was at 79% snaps, 5 for 1, -2 in this game. All 3 of these guys had red zone targets in this game. Parker Washington was at 24% snaps. If you're into that type of thing from a dynasty league standpoint, Evan Ingram was still out with a hamstring. Supposedly he's tracking towards coming back. And then Brenton Strange, 72% snaps, 3 for 3 for 19. If Evan Ingram's out, he still would stay in streamability. Now, when it comes to these wide receivers, yeah, Christian Kirk's still the wide receiver 1. He's probably real life fantasy football land wide receiver 2 when it comes down to that, at least for one more week. And that means that Brian Thomas is probably like a low end wide receiver 2, at least for one more week. I can imagine that we're going to get the flop this week when it comes down to that. That's why I said, if you're kind of a dum-dum like me and let Brian Thomas go in one of your leagues, that's the amount of fab that you should be dropping on the guy theoretically to get that number 1 in that 7 to 10 target range and 120 air yards a week. But realize when you're spending on that guy, that flop may never occur with Christian Kirk. So if he's available too, for what's going on with the offense, not a good offense. All right, the Jets, no idea what's going on. Not a real football channel. Don't care about any of that. When it comes to actual usage, we were already tracking that Breece Hall was maybe not going to be a unicorn this year. This is just bad efficiency. Still 69% snaps, which is in line with what he's been doing the last 3 weeks. 10 for 4, 5 for 2 for 14. Now, if you're wondering about Braylon Allen, yeah, he's very close to a standalone value, only at 36% snaps, 8 for 34, 1 for 1 for 12. So again, deeper leagues, yeah, he's an RB2 with a little bit of opportunity in this one. I did see that Breece had a touchdown called back earlier in the game because I was rolling out my shares. Now, Garrett Wilson, not going to be probably a league winner at this point. 8 for 5 for 41, fumble lost on the opening drive, 96% snaps. Alan Lazard, 88% snaps, 8 for 5 for 54 in this going. But the big news, if you're going after the guy, if you're wondering, Mike Williams, 58% snaps, 5 for 4 for 67. So he looks like he's going to be that boom bust wide receiver 2 that he's been in the past. 77 air yards, led everybody. So again, after waiver stashes, yeah, Mike Williams, if he's available. There are still better guys to be going out after, because to be able to predict the offense and what the target distribution is going to be within the offense on a week-to-week basis may be very difficult. We were hoping that we get 10 target a week, Garrett Wilson, with some spike weeks from Mike Williams, with Alan Lazard eating into whatever's going on. I don't know, but we can at least track that we are getting what we thought we were going to get out of Mike Williams. Tyler Conklin, I would still say is a no outside of deeper leagues with a very safe floor. 92% snaps, 8 for 4 for 17. All right. Giants on Monday night. Be advised, this was an absolute shootout, and I don't know how many of these we're going to get at all in football, let alone this year. So Jared Goff, 18 for 18, 292, 2 touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. His one incomplete pass got called back on an offensive pass interference. Running back perspective, Jahmyr Gibbs, 57% snaps, 2 touchdowns. And then David Montgomery was at 40% snaps, 1 touchdown, and then a 40-yard reception. That was a pretty thing to look at. Now, the other thing to look at is 5 red zone opportunities for Jahmyr Gibbs and 4 red zone opportunities for Montgomery. I think they were all carries. Jameson Williams was at 96% snaps, 2 for 2 for 80 and a tuck. So boom bust wide receiver 3, but he should be played every week at this point. Tim Paxton was at 40% snaps. A-Rob was active in this one. Sam Laporta coming off that mild ankle sprain, 89% snaps, 4 for 4 for 53. Brock Wright stays in at 55% snaps. So most of the game, they were rolling two tights and they were jamming the football down the throat. That generally looks like the lines are going to be. Not a real football channel, but I can say, like, when the other team has no idea what you're going to do, like, you're going to win a lot of football games. And that's what it generally looks like. When you can do 18 for 18, you know where the football is going and they don't. And that includes your running back. So that's like just good real life stuff. Now, moving on to the Packers, this was they fell behind 28-7 and they scored 22 points late in the fourth quarter. So grain of salt when it comes to some of this stuff, including when we talk about Dontavian Wicks when it gets down to that. All right. Not a lot to say about Jordan Love. The running back situation, Amir Wilson's 39% snaps. He's a cuff right now, so I don't really care about Marshawn Lloyd being on IR regardless. Josh Jacobs bounces back 61% snaps, 9 for 51. Again, negative script, 6 for 4 for 27. That's why the receiving work for these guys is so important. All right, wide receivers. So Christian Watson, this is what I was talking about yesterday in Chasing the Dragon. Unlikely to go on IR, so I'm going to guess right now you're looking at 3 weeks. Christian Watson not going on IR. So first and foremost, when you're going to go after your Dontavian Wicks, that's what I would be thinking about, like spending on a guy that is going to be a wide receiver 3 with league-winning upside, that in order for him to have that league-winning upside, he has 3 weeks to take the job and not give it back. Now, Jaden Reed is going to be in that wide receiver 2 range, 78% snaps, 8 for 7, 139, 1 touchdown. He did have 91 air yards. That 1 touchdown was a red zone target. Romeo Doubs, if he's available with Jordan Love, 86% snaps, 8 for 4 for 39. In this one, he did have a red zone target. Bo Melton, before we get to Dontavian Wicks, he was in at 14% snaps, 3 for 1 for 28 in this game, 100 air yards on his 3 targets. Now, this is important when we start talking about the 183 air yards that Dontavian Wicks had. They got into a game late where they were just putting the ball up, trying to come back. Jordan Love had 3 interceptions to go along with the 54 pass attempts that he had in the game and the 4 touchdowns. So with Dontavian Wicks, those 76% snaps, 13 for 5 for 78, 2 touchdowns, 183 air yards, 3 red zone targets. Some of that will remain consistent, even though as a whole, the numbers will come down. So you're probably still going to be looking at about like 8 targets a game, certain amount of red zone opportunities. Romeo Doubs generally is the red zone guy. The passing game does appear to go through Jaden Reed. And what you're hoping for with Wicks is that he gets everything, right? He is the unicorn as a wide receiver. So again, from a strategy perspective, I've never felt bad about overpaying on a guy that I wanted, but, and here's the but, 3-week rental and with a chance to win leagues. So like spend what you think is that's worth to you. Probably going to be more worth to teams that are struggling that need wide receiver help, or teams that like are 4-0 and have the bench spot in the fab to go after them, hoping on that. Now, Tucker Kraft, and again, remember it, I keep mispronouncing his name. The game flow that was going on, this stuff should have already been rostered. With Jordan Love being the starting quarterback, should have been rolled out there. But again, you're looking at like the number 4 in the offense on a week-to-week basis. So again, like grain of salt when it comes down to that, if you're chasing it on the wire. 9 for 6 for 63, touchdown, fumble loss. The other interesting thing about this is in the game script, Luke Musgrave was only at 33% snaps, 3 for 3 for 13 in the game. All right. Panthers. Not going to talk too much about Andy Dalton other than the fact that, like, if you're chasing passing touchdowns, that's Bryce Young. If you're chasing passing touchdowns this year, that's probably not a bad idea with generally how the league script is going on. Chuba in this game, 74% snaps, 18 for 104, 1 touchdown, 4 for 4 for 17. That's still an RB1 for the foreseeable future. We have no news on Jonathan Brooks, the practice window open yet. Like, it still hasn't been open, so be advised on that one. You still have an RB1 with that. But Miles Sanders is now a cuff, 31% snaps, 6 for 32, 4 for 3 for 14 in that script against the Bengals. He is going to be the cuff because if Chuba goes down, he would still project to be the number 1 until Jonathan Brooks ramps back up. So if you're wondering all that stuff, with the window for Jonathan Brooks being open in shallower leagues, I wouldn't be stashing him right now because of all the stuff that's going on. Chuba's probably not going to give that job up easily. They don't have to rush on Jonathan Brooks this year. Miles Sanders looks serviceable. The offense looks better. I don't know why they'd be rushing anything. Deontay Johnson in this one, 83% snaps, 13 for 7, 83, and a touchdown. 2 red zone targets, 160 air yards. That's a wide receiver 1, if you're wondering. Xavier Leggett, 1 week sample size, 87% snaps, 10 for 6 for 66, and a touchdown in this one. I want to go back and look this up. 1 red zone target that he got. So again, that's a wide receiver 2 if you're going to be spending on these guys. So Leggett versus Wicks, remember the ceiling is probably higher on Leggett right now, or excuse me, the floor is probably higher on Leggett right now than the ceiling, even though the ceiling on Wicks is probably going to be higher when it comes down to that. 81 air yards. Now I bring up the 81 air yards because if you're wondering about Jonathan Mingo's uses, I did see this on Twitter that he's primarily was using the slot. 80% snaps, 5 for 3 for 24. He had 15 total air yards. Now, the other thing is, I may not be right about, or I may not be wrong about Tommy Tremble. So Jatavion Sanders, 29% snaps, 2 for 2 for 16. Sometimes we don't always see it in the box score. 87% snaps for Tommy Tremble. He's the starting wide receiver there. Theoretically, you could be getting the number 3 attached in this offense, which is going to make him a weekly start at this point. So again, if you have the opportunity to stash him, I would be doing that. All right, Patriots. Sip of water. All right, still no change when it comes to Jacoby Brissett versus Drake May. We're still expecting that Drake May will eventually get in there. Ramondre Stevenson, 55% snaps, another fumble loss. He's got 4 total fumbles, 2 lost on the season. That can't remain sustainable at this point. Antonio Gibson, 34% snaps, 6 for 12, 4 for 3 for 67. Yeah, you're getting really close to standalone value with Antonio Gibson, the way this offense is functioning, and Ramondre Stevenson fumbling the way that he is. Now, when it comes to the wide receivers, 59% snaps for Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas. Jolyn Polk, 83% snaps, 7 for 3 for 30. More importantly, when it comes to stashability and are we going to get our spike week, 107 air yards. He should be rostered at this point to be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the year. Other things to look at, KJ Osborne, 66% snaps in this one, 5 targets. Did see Kendrick Bourne expected to return to practice this week. If you're wondering about all that stuff, he would project to be the number 2, I would say, in this offense. No news on Javon Baker in this one. So, if there's going to be a guy to break out on that, don't care about the tight ends right now when it comes to the Patriots. All right, Raiders. Raiders are a train wreck. First and foremost, this running back usage is just ridiculous because they all are supposed to do certain things and they're not doing them. So 59% snaps, 17 carries for Zamir White, fumbled again and lost it. Now, Alexander Madison, 36% snaps, 5 for 60 in this game, 1 target. Did not look up the red zone usage because I don't particularly care, or I did look up the red zone usage. I take that back. Got to scroll my notes down to find it. So the red zone carry in this game went to Tyreek McAllister. I don't know. 5'10", 85 pound, 3rd-year running back out of Charleston, number 89, or number 32. I don't know. I have no idea about him. The reason why I bring this up is Amir Abdullah. He's the pass blocking special teams guy. No snaps again this week. They have no clue what they're doing in Las Vegas, if you're wondering. Dylan Labe, I went and looked this up. He was actually active, no usage. I have no idea what's going on with his backfield when it comes to Raiders. Now, this gets even stranger because Michael Mayer was ruled out for week 4 with for personal reasons. Now, I went and looked this up. The guys that know aren't disclosing why he was ruled out with personal reasons. He did practice on Friday from what I saw. Now, then we get a little deeper. Devontae Adams, now everybody's talking about he may end up getting traded. Now, you do you when it comes to speculating on guys getting traded or not being traded. Going into the season, the news was that Devontae Adams' contract is not tradable. So take that with a grain of salt when you're going after this. So this Michael Mayer personal reason why he was held out, I'm going to guess that there may be some a trade rumblings on Michael Mayer when it comes to this on from his side. So if you're stashing from a tight end perspective in deeper leagues, where he's going would be interesting on top of all that. Brock Bowers disappointed. He was up to 81% snaps, 3 for 2 for 19, expecting that he was going to be the unicorn in the offense. The other thing, if you're going to be speculating on Devontae Adams in this offense, this is a bad offense. It's a train wreck. Jacoby Myers, 97% snaps, 10 targets to go along this one. Because of the speculation, even in like some of your shallower leagues, like Trey Tucker now, 6 for 5 for 41 rushing touchdown, he becomes stashable, potentially even startable going into this week. Guessing on what's going on with Davante Adams and his hamstring. Again, I'll just stress this again. The Raiders are a train wreck, and speculating on where and when guys are going to get traded is not always the best idea. If you can get Davante Adams for a bag of chips, it's probably not a bad idea. But I don't know how many guys are going to be letting you get guys for bags of chips. Remember, if you really want guys, go out and overpay them. If you don't really want guys, lowball an offer to a guy. And that's the way to do it. And I don't know if I would really want to be buying on any of the Raiders, let alone speculating that I can get Davante Adams for a bag of chips and an untradeable contract will get traded. All right. Moving on to the Rams. First and foremost, Kyren Williams, he remains a unicorn when it comes down to this. In this game, 79% snaps, which is down, 19 for 94, a touchdown, 4 for 4 for 10. Red zone work, receiving work, 4 red zone carries in this game. Ronnie Rivers was at 21% snaps to go along with this. The other thing is he did get a red zone carry, I think, from what I wrote down. And then Blake Corum, no usage. Very odd pick. Logic was right. A guy with ridiculously high opportunities or a snap share, and then they go out and they spend high draft capital on a guy. Like, the logic is right that he would at least cut into that a little bit. It didn't work. But again, like Kyren Williams, he looks like he's a unicorn regardless of how good or bad the offense is. Now, Puka's still tracking to be out for a while. Cooper Kupp already ruled out for week 5 if you're into that type of thing. Demarcus Robinson, 85% snap, 3 for 2 for 37, limited with a groin today. If you went out and you chased Tyler Johnson, I understand 16% snaps in this game going forward. The 2 guys that I would be tracking if you want pieces of this offense, Tutu Atwell, 90% snaps, 6 for 4 for 82, 5'9", 165, likely will always be in that boom bust wide receiver 3 range. Jordan Whittington, Camp Darling, 97% snaps, 8 targets, 6 for 62. I can only imagine that that's going to go up with all the stats that are going on. So when it comes to chasing your Dontavian Wicks and your Xavier Leggett and all those guys, like Jordan Whittington right now, like he's wide receiver 2. Just plug him in and play him at least for one more week. And then even after one more week, he's likely going to stay in that role, even if Cooper Kupp comes back. So, be advised on all that stuff. Colby Parkinson is going to stay in that streamability range, 87% snaps, 7 for 4 for 33 in this game. Again, he's on the field enough and he's getting enough opportunity that he will have a spike week. We're expecting them to stay in 2 tight end sets, 21% snaps. They went back to what they normally do with 3 wide receivers. That's part of the reason why Jordan Whittington would have so much value. So from the perspective of the Ravens, I don't have a lot to say. They don't care about your fantasy lineup. Right now, you're looking at Derrick Henry winning leagues. Justice Hill is a cuff. If not, week-to-week value, 6 for 6 for 78, 1 touchdown in the game, and this was a blowout. No news on Rasheen Ali and no news on Keaton Mitchell, but it won't matter because, again, like Derrick Henry is way too efficient on the carries that he's getting. It just doesn't matter. Like, the chances of you getting anybody else. No news on Zay Flowers, 68% snaps, 2 targets. Rashad Bateman, 65% snaps, 1 target, and they don't care about your lineup. So like whatever's going on with Mark Andrews doesn't matter. 46% snaps, 1 target. They have to get in the right script. Maybe the Bengals, maybe the Redskins, maybe the Bucks, probably not Cleveland, probably not the Broncos, maybe the Bengals, definitely not the Steelers. That's going to be an ugly game. Chargers are going to be slow. Philadelphia might be a shootout. They should blow out the Giants in week 1 of the championship. The Steelers will be ugly again, and you might get a shootout when it comes to the Texans in the championship. This is not a Mark Andrews problem. This is all the wide receivers all the receivers when it comes to the Ravens. So like Lamar Jackson, good. Derrick Henry, league winner. Maybe I would think about cuffing Justice Hill at this point. Maybe in deeper leagues, I'd be thinking about rolling out Justice Hill as like a desperation RB2. All right, the Saints. So nothing to say on Derek Hill or Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara, league winner, 82% snaps, 19 for 77, touchdown, 9 for 7 for 42. Yeah, like very limited amount of these guys that are left. Kendre Miller may come back from or have his window open from IR this week with the hamstring. Maybe I'd be speculating a little bit on Kendre Miller if you're into that type of thing. Like Jamal Williams is not going to win leagues as a cuff. And then the one problem that I would have maybe when Kendre Miller come back is that massive workload for Alvin Kamara may go down at that point if you're speculating. Chris Olave, another red zone target on 78, 10 for 8 for 87 in this one. Rasheen Ali, this is it. The number 2 in an offense, like he was always going to be a weekly start. You should have known that when you bought him. Like that's what I would have been expecting. 11 for 8 for 83 in this game. So like, expect that going forward that you're going to have some variance, but where am I going to be rolling him out is either as like a boom bust wide receiver 2 or as a flex where I don't care. He can only win me a league. Probably can't break my heart when it comes down to that. You're not going to be worried about that. Mason Tipton, rookie from Yale, his snap share goes up again, 39% snaps. He's going to have a spike week. Probably not going to be able to predict it without an injury. And then Jawan Johnson, that snap share is going up, 68% snaps. Do not care about him and Foster Moreau. Taysom Hill, 20% snaps, 2 rushing touchdowns. So Alvin Kamara had a better week. He gets knocked out with ribs. So like that would probably upgrade Alvin Kamara at this point if that goes on down the line. Seahawks. Okay, so this was an absolute shootout when it comes down to this. Take the passing stats with a grain of salt. Again, 56 pass attempts when it comes to Geno Smith. Now, could we have predicted this? Probably because, the higher implied point totals when it comes down to this. Now, overall, know what you got in Kenneth Walker. Someone comes offering you like running back 1 haul for Kenneth Walker. Yeah, you should think about it. Because 59% snaps, 12 for 8 for 3, 5 for 4 for 36. It doesn't matter how good you think he is at football. And he made one of the most ridiculous plays in this game where you like flipped over a guy. It doesn't matter. He's going to have certain amounts of sub 40-degree days when he doesn't fall in the end zone and he doesn't get the receiving work. Because again, whatever you think about these guys, again, teams are not stupid sometimes. They're not throwing their sports cars into brick walls. Zach Charbonnet, 42% snaps, 2 for 15, 5 for 5 for 39. Still a cuff, should be held by everybody, should be rostered in all leagues, especially after what he did week 3. He's the bell cow. Kenneth Walker is not the bell cow. So out of these 2 guys, realize there are going to be weeks where he vultures work, and Kenneth Walker has sub 40-degree days. Just realize that. Now, not a lot to say about the wide receivers because of the shootout. DK, 12 targets, fumble lost in this one. Tyler Lockett, 9 targets. JSN, he had 12 targets in this game, and they weren't very efficient, 12 for 8 for 51 in this one, so outside of Devils leagues. The slightly interesting thing on this one was 57% snaps for Noah Fant. AJ Barner, 39% snaps, 2 for 2 for 27 and a touchdown. So, like, the rookie, a little bit interesting to be tracking that going forward with these guys down the line. Steelers. I talked a little bit about this with Justin Fields. A similar thing to the Ravens. They don't care about your fantasy lineup. They can win with sub 40-degree Justin Fields weeks. Now, I don't like having guys that can win leagues on my wire. So even though like he's going to be a guy who will win weeks, some weeks, and he will also give you sub 40-degree days, like be advised like what you're getting when you go after Justin Fields, because the defense is good enough that they don't need him to do anything other than manage a game. The running back situation, Najee was not very efficient on his 69% snaps. And then Cordell Patterson, he was very efficient, 13% snaps, 6 for 43, 2 for 2 for 19 in this game, but he got knocked out with an ankle early. Now, I bring this up because be tracking this with Jalen Warren. If Cordell Patterson is healthy, probably would be a sneaky cute role as either a flex or a running back too, because of that high efficiency and how inefficient Najee has been on the season. Now, the only wide receiver we really talk about is George Pickens. Really going to be flirting as a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1, because they don't really have anybody else to throw the football to. 86 for 11, or 86% snaps, 11 for 7, 113, 1 fumble loss. Again, the bigger issue with George Pickens has nothing to do with talent. At this point, it has everything to do with they're going to be in a lot of games where they just don't need to do anything. And that's the same reason why I wouldn't necessarily trust Justin Fields. They have a good enough defense to say, like, we can win, 10-9 like the Broncos did to the Jets. And then tight ends, if Muth is available, expected that snap share will go down. Michael Pruitt was out in this game. That's why the snap share has been up 7 for 5 for 57, a touchdown. So going to lose a little bit of work if they're running all 4 of their tight ends, but he's going to be top 10 tight end if they're not, because he projects to be the number 2 behind George Pickens at this point in the offense. All right, Texans. So this is another one I think is a little bit of an outlier with CJ Stroud. They played like one of the worst pass defenses in all football. So the 27 to 40, 345, 2 touchdowns, probably not going to be something that I'm going to be expecting every week. Now, when it comes to the running back situation, Joe Mixon is likely going to be back. He was ramping up at the end of last week. Dameon Pierce, who knows? So if you're worried about Cam Akers, like I don't think he's rosterable at this point. Like outside of like really desperation land, I don't know what you're going to get, even if he gets the opportunity again, because you're looking at him probably falling back to number 4 on the depth chart. JJ Taylor, they activated off the practice squad. He had 2 red zone carries in this game. Let me pull this up real quick so I can talk about it. So he got 2 of the red zone carries in this game. After getting elevated on 21% snaps, and then Dare, he scores the game-winning touchdown, 4 for 47 in the passing game, and that was always going to be the problem with Mixon. So going forward, you're likely not going to get enough work out of Mixon, Akers, for him to be really a fantasy relevant guy going forward. So again, if you drop him, or if he becomes available again because of injuries, like I just don't think they trust him enough for it to matter. Nico Collins, if you're wondering about his projected stat line, you're looking at 103 targets or 183 targets, which is like 80 more than he did last year. 128 receptions, which is 40 more than he did last year. 2,078 yards and 9 projected touchdowns. So again, know what you have and what you're trying to trade for. This is a legendary season that he's on pace for. Stephon Diggs, 83% snaps, 9 for 5 for 69, a rushing touchdown. Tank Dell was out. The wide receiver 3 when it comes to the Texans is Bobby Trees at 72% snaps. John Mechie was at 12% snaps. Dalton Schultz was at 87% snaps. He did not get the uptick because Tank Dell was out. 5 for 3 for 34. He did have a red zone target. Cade Stover, 32% snaps, 1 for 1 for 17. Drink of water. All right, Titans. I don't have a lot to say on this one either. Will Levis, he comes in, he throws a pick, he hurts his shoulder, he gets knocked out. Mason Rudolph may or may not be an actual upgrade to Will Levis when it comes down to that. Tony Pollard, 60% snaps, 22 for 88, a touchdown, 2 for 2 for 20, 5 red zone attempts in this game. Tajay Spear, 42% snaps, 15 for 39, tug, 2 for 2 for 0. 2 red zone opportunities. He cashed one of those in. Because of the offense, Tony Pollard's only going to probably stay in that RB2 land going forward. And then Tajay Spears probably should be rostered in all leagues because of the lottery ticket situation that's going to go on. Definitely going to be a cuff if you're Tony Pollard. I don't care about anybody else. Calvin Ridley was down to 58% snaps, only 3 targets. DeAndre Hopkins was at 32% snaps, 4 targets. Yeah, I don't care. The Vikings, they jumped out to a 28-7 lead, and then they tried to throw the game away. Sam Darnold threw 3 more touchdowns. At this point, when it comes to Sam Darnold, I will just say that, like, I probably would feel somewhat comfortable in certain leagues rolling him up against bad matchups, and that includes, like, week 5 against the Jets when it comes down to this. Jordan Addison coming back was at 66% snaps, 2 tugs, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air. I imagine that snap share will go up. Jalen Naylor was down at 21% snaps. In deeper leagues, I'd still hold on to him because, again, they jumped out to that 27% lead. Their 2 tight ends had like a lot of usage in this game. 60% snaps for Munt. Josh Oliver, the blocking tight end, was at 68% snaps. So, like, they were trying to burn clock in this one. Aaron Jones was at 82% snaps, 22 for 93, 5 for 4 for 46. He's an RB1 right now because Ty Chandler was at 12% snaps. To carry on, like, what's going on with these wide receivers, Brandon Powell was at 34% snap. They were just trying to get out of this game. 32% snap for Trent Sherfield. Justin Jefferson, 90% snaps. Yeah, like, they jumped out and they tried to burn clock, and it almost bit them. That's what happened in this game. No news on TJ Hawkinson. So other things to finish this off today. If I can bring this up, haul this over here. You're looking at like Chase Brown. Yeah, he may be an RB2, what we thought we were going to get at the beginning of the season. Eric All is going to be a stash in deeper leagues. Cortland Sutton's a buy. Troy Franklin's a stash. Jalen Polk is going to be a stash. We can speculate all over the place when it comes to the Raiders. Dontavian Wicks would be the guy to go after chasing the dragon in waivers. Jordan Whittington, if he slips through, yeah, I'd be picking that guy up. You're looking at like Trey Sermon as like a volume-based RB2 when it comes to the Colts. Kareem Hunt is probably going to be, somewhere in that RB2 range projected when it comes down to the Chiefs coming forward that we can be looking at with some of these guys that are out there. Tyler Algier, if he's available, as a rental with the Thursday night game with the Falcons right now that we're going to be going on. But anyway, that's about what I got for after waivers for coming out of week 5 or coming out of week 4, going into week 5. And I'll see you on Friday with the Grift.